What is enlightenment? Right? It's used in Western historical context. It's used in political or anthropological, on and on and on. But we're Buddhists, and we're here with this resource and other parts of this resource, the website and the bookstore and all of that, to deepen our understanding of the meaning of Shakyamuni's teachings of Lotus Sutra method for self-enlightenment, certainly with our great modern Bodhisattva, Nichiren. But I've been asked this question by many of you and others. What the heck is enlightenment? What are you talking about? So, this series, for my upcoming book, Buddhism Reference, I'm going to endeavor to answer that question as compactly and straightforwardly as I can. It's going to assume some knowledge which, as it turns out, is also going to be defined in different areas of this book, right? So I'm trying to catch all of these terms. The important thing is, because the definition seems to shift over, even in Buddhism, right? What's important is, this is the latter day of the law. This is the age when there's a serious contention of confusion about the Lotus Sutra, how to practice Buddhism, and therefore a real threat of losing the teachings. That's what the story of the Lotus Sutra is about, yeah? So being those bodhisattvas of future age, of this mappo, of this latter age of degeneration, we are responsible for keeping this teaching clear, pure, meaningful, and not getting distracted or confused by ancient traditions and folklore and blah, blah, blah. You've heard me talk about this many, many times. So enlightenment, that's what we're going to talk about today. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your practice. Thank you for your curiosity. Now let's get to it, okay? Namo Myoho Renge Kyo, Namo Myoho Renge Kyo, Namo Myoho Renge Kyo. Before I start, please take a moment to like and subscribe if you haven't subscribed already. Not for me, but for all of us, right? Because it helps the algorithms of YouTube grow this Sangha, which is what we're all here for. So that's a bodhisattva thing to do, yeah? Beyond that, buying ebooks off threefoldlotus.com or print books, so on and so forth. Super helpful, super critical for our support. Patrons, we all appreciate your support. $1 a month, $10 a month, whatever is acceptable, able for you to support. Super, super important, okay? All right, sorry. Enlightenment. I have four, I don't like calling them definitions, but they're like keywords that go along with enlightenment. Other things you might want to look up in this book that relate, right? But then you might say, well, that's all we do is talk about enlightenment. And I wouldn't argue with you. But as a term, as a word, what do we mean? What are we pointing at when we use this word? So the first one is Gohonzon mind. So there's concepts right there we could spend an hour talking about, right? What is Gohonzon? And that's also in the book. Gohonzon mind is our portal in Samsara to enter our clarity of Buddha-ness, yes? Enlightenment. 2, Buddha-ness. Duh. Well, you might not know that had you not studied, right, this Buddhism. 3, another way of saying the same thing, enlightenment, is liberation, right? That goes way back to the Four Noble Truths. Liberation from what? Not from politics, not from social constructs, but from samsara. Oh, samsara, another term also in the book. 4th, the experience of the engine of life. Another term in the book. We talked about it last video, right? All right. So let's get into the definition. See if we can keep this cohesive. The experience of the engine of life is a paradigm shift liberating our mind from the mundane attachments or clinging. I actually think that works better. Attachment seems to be so physical, but clinging kind of points back at us, right? Who's doing the clinging? Is it the guitar? No, it's our mind, right? So I actually think clinging works better than attachments. And that is of the samsaric constructs of identifying. See how all these words, they're all circling around the same thing? Identification we've talked about. Oh, I think that's in the book here. I need to double check that. Make a note. Identification. See, this is what happens as I go through this book. I come up with terms that I think, well, most people will think, I know what that means. But in terms of our practice of Buddhism, sometimes the word is a little more specific, right? Shakyamuni did this with all sorts of terminology, right? Buddhism was very revolutionary in the way it looked at the body-mind relationship, the body-world relationship, the mind-mind relationship, so on and so forth. So the book continues to grow. Hopefully, by the time I get to the end of it, I have a really complete picture for all of us, right? I can't wait. There's so much desire for this kind of a book. I hear it from you guys all the time. So on one hand, I'm really in a hurry to do it. On the other hand, I want to make sure it's complete. All right, let's go on. Buddhism is about the mind and understanding its powers of perception. Liberating our, quote, self from samsara is sometimes misunderstood as a form of selflessness, right? This is where we get confused as human beings. We think self is this body, it's this thing. But the self in Buddhism isn't the thing, it's the clinging to the thing. It's a mental identification. Actually, it's quite the opposite, I say, in that the experience of all phenomena, instantiating from moment to moment, is expansive and explosive in its scope of our personal experience, far in excess of the borders, maybe parameters, we have constructed in our samsaric reality, quote unquote. This is an expansive experience of being. That verb again. It's not an expansive experience of, don't picture your body getting bigger. Picture your mind getting bigger. Accepting, experiencing everything all at once in this moment and into the next. That's being, not been. Not I've been, therefore I am. No. I am now being and moving, a momentum. So I'm never the same thing moment to moment. I'm always evolving, developing, becoming, right? In our modern times of machines like computers, most of us are aware that all computers do is turn on and off switches in order to process data. Maybe you didn't know that, but what do we always say about these machines? These switches are known as ones and zeros, right? One on, it's really a vertical marker, and zero off, not connected. Connect, not connect. It's a switch, right? In groups of 8, 16, 32, 64, right? You have a 64-bit computer. That's just 64 ones and zeros as a command, a state. Normally, a computer is seen with our eyes, quote unquote, via a monitor or screen of pictures and images presented by an interface for our easy and simplified interactions with the machine, right? You don't sit there and type ones and zeros endlessly. Oh my goodness, you'd never get anything done. That's called machine language, by the way. Alternatively, to be inside a computer, if you can imagine yourself inside a computer's CPU, the central processing unit, or for lack of a better analogy, the mind of the computer, we might see a version of the world, picturing the CPU as able to experience the world, which it cannot, but let's just go with this analogy. We might see a version of the world defined only by streams of ones and zeros. Right? If you saw the movie The Matrix, they didn't use ones and zeros, but the stream of data or language that was going by that represented other things, they didn't have a nice interface, which is kind of silly for that movie. You should have had a better interface, but it makes the point quite nicely. Everything divides down to ones and zeros, right? That was the aspect of the movie that was intriguing about the way everything was a computer simulation, right? Analogous to this, using that thinking, Samsara gives us a simplified interface of physical experience in the world, while enlightenment, now, did you see the analogy I made? Samsara is like the interface, the monitor, the simplified version of what's going on in the world. And we get attached to that. We cling to those nice pictures and images as though they are real. But that's not really what's going on, is it? No, the computer is busy ones and zeros all the time. Those pictures are just interpretations for us to feel like we know what's going on, right? Like the little circle that keeps spinning. It's the computer going, right? Okay. Enlightenment could perceive the world and its components as points of light instead of ones and zeros, energy. These photons, or points of light, might be separated by great distance or compacted so closely as to create forms like clouds. You've heard me talk about this before, right? As if you could see clouds of energy collected, like you and I are clouds of energy, of various multitudinous forms instantiated of energy, right? Built by energy, but in slightly different tendencies and conditions, all working together to provide us this interface, this human body, interfacing with the process of the universe. Constantly blinking into existence moment to moment, right? Don't forget the momentum. This is an ongoing, there's nothing static. Each collection with its own momentum, like clouds of light moving in space-time. Wow, that looks very different from a bunch of streams of ones and zeros calculating, right? Existence, life, isn't computational. This is another discussion, an aside, but this is where I have a problem with this artificial intelligence wording. It's bullcrap. Right? It's not intelligence. Artificial it may be, but not intelligence. It's organized data. It's not a mind. It's not sentient. All right. Also, if you're familiar with the teachings of quantum fluctuations, if you're not, maybe go on YouTube and do a search and watch a couple of videos. Some of it may go over your head, some of it not, but usually there's some pretty good illustrations. PBS Space-Time is a channel that does a fabulous job of illustrating these concepts. It might open your mind and you might get some insights about your Buddhist practice watching these kinds of videos. You don't have to be a scientist, right? Remember Shakyamuni, Nichiren repeats it, study broadly, because it all feeds into the way you perceive reality. And as Buddhists, that's what we're working on. Okay. Our samsaric preoccupation with the differentiation of solid things, quote unquote, becomes futile and useless, while unity, photons of light, energy, everywhere in different concentrations, that's unifying, isn't it? Is everywhere all the time in an activity of arising, decaying, and dissolution. Clouds forming and dissipating becomes simply evident. It's just obvious. This is the life condition of Buddha-ness. Now I'm answering that question. What is enlightenment? So all these terms and everything, this is what enlightenment looks like. No differences, just variations and in motion, constantly changing. That changes the way we experience everything. It's very calming because now you don't have to worry about running out of something or getting more of something. It's all the same stuff in variation, and it's always changing. So the variation isn't static either. Wow. To witness the momentum of all those clouds of light, as it were, coexisting and in constant change. That's what I just said. And I threw in another term in here because it's often substituted for enlightenment, awakening. It's like a secondary meaning. Same thing, though. Another term for enlightenment. Awakening refers to the teaching that our mind state of Buddha, enlightenment, is an innate capacity of our sentient mind. This capacity is kept dormant, though, by our intensely grasping mind, samsara, with distractions and cravings, collecting and identifying and clinging. Nichiren's doctrine of awakening is to invoke our Buddha mind, to just turn it on via the Daimoku of the Lotus Sutra. Just go in that attic where all that stored knowledge is and turn the light on. That's Nichiren's amazing teaching lesson for us to get from the Lotus Sutra method. By training our minds, as Shakyamuni taught, and as the lineage of scholarship leading to Nichiren follows our mental development, we practice that daily, training via chanting and using Nichiren's mandala as a focus tool to awaken our Buddha mind. Eventually, we can influence and train our mind to live in samsara with the full potential of our Buddha capacities to live our lives fully realized as Bodhisattva, coursing this lifetime in the Buddha way. This paradigm shift is a profound change in our mind's ability to experience quote-unquote reality from samsara, or a condition of grasping at indelible things, to an experience of reality as a constantly flowing and changing dance of tendencies and conditions, never still and ever developing before our mind's eye. With this new mindset, the idea of clinging or even grasping, it just becomes irrelevant. Liberation, right? And that's where I end this entry in the Buddhism reference. I hope it covered a lot of ground, but I think the more you'll read these definitions, or whatever you want to call them, of these terms and words in this book, I don't think you can escape noticing that the constant repetition of these terms within and without each term, right? They call Buddhism a cyclical, right, practice. Because the more you learn about it, the more you're starting. The start, the realization is what it's all about. And the deeper you go, the more you come back to realizing. It's like chanting. Namu, I am here and present and dedicating myself, resolved to meet Buddha, my Buddha, the Buddha-ness. And that is the law, the a priori law, the engine of life of Myoho Renge Kyo. Namu, Myoho Renge Kyo. Do it now. This is what I'm doing. This is what I'm committing to. Every time we chant the Daimoku, this is what we're saying. We're invoking our own Buddha-ness. We're awakening our Buddha mind, I, nature, how many ways can we say it? Thank you, Nichiren. And thank you for listening. I'll remind you again, take a moment, like and subscribe, helps grow the Sangha. Lots of free information like this available on threefoldlotus.com on the core materials, core study materials page. Lots of basic questions and some not so basic answered in PDF form. You can download them or read them online. Also, the ebooks page will have an ebook version of this manual when I'm done with it. And the bookstore. Some of us, I still like. I like to write in a book, and fold the corners of the pages, mark them. I like having a physical book. But it's getting more and more expensive to get print books and shipping. Oh my goodness. So yeah, ebooks are often the best solution, and more people enjoy doing that. So, plus I use Bookman old style 12-point fonts in all my books, as I grew very tired of these books that have little ant-sized letters crushed together on pages that aren't even white. Oh my goodness. I get a headache just thinking about trying to read that stuff. Now, I want to make it easier to read because the point is that you get the information, not that you can focus on, Nat font. Anyway, thanks again for listening. Please take care of your health. Keep your practice strong. That's what this is all about. And if you can, support via purchases of books, mandalas, ebooks, or Patreon and PayPal. There's several of you who support this endeavor that way, and you guys are Bodhisattva. So thank you. All right. I will see you in the next one. Bye for now.